G'day guys, this is Nick at stridewise.com where we look at casual and durable menswear and footwear. And today with a special guest, Roger, who is Roger__AF on Instagram. He's a pathologist here in New York City. And also he has some very special boots from an unbelievably hard to source brand. Roger, thank you for coming on the channel today.
Yes, thanks for having me.
I found out that he has not one or two, but three pairs of boots that are extremely coveted from perhaps the most beloved and mysterious bootmaker in China. I think definitely in China. The brand is called Flame Panda. And Roger's giving us his review over many years.
The longest pair I've had were these. I got these about 4 years ago. And then I had these, and then these are a very recent acquisition.
Okay, we're gonna go through the leathers and the styles and everything and the price in a little bit. But first of all, a lot of people are probably wondering, what's the big deal with Flame Panda?
So Flame Panda is really the name for a maker named Peng, like we said, in China. I heard about them through Jake from Almost Vintage Style. He's done a number of boot brand reviews, and he had talked a little bit about, I think it was the monkey boots that he had. And this was like right around the time that Peng was starting to be able to source Shinki. So there's lots of discussions about like Shinki horsehide. And so
Shinki being like maybe the most beloved horse leather tannery in the world and for cordovan as well.
Right.
Certainly in Asia.
So Peng is a little bit different. He's one of these made to order brands where you get to, he has different lasts, but you can basically customize everything about them. So you customize what type of leather you're doing. You can customize the color of the stitching throughout. You can customize like the hardware that you're using. You can customize the heel, so like block heels versus like a Cuban heel. This is one of the things that people really like about Flame Panda is, one, you have really high production value, but also you can design them kind of as you want them to be.
Now, these are 3 different lasts or 2 different lasts?
No, 2 different lasts. Yeah.
Okay. Can you describe to the folks what the difference between the lasts is? Lasts
Yeah.
are?
So this is the 181 last, so it's like a traditional service boot. This one is a little bit different. This is built on the 206 last. This was Peng's first last that he had made. So he designed this last based on some cloth shoes that the women in his village used to make. So this was the first last that he had produced. It's got a little bit wider foot than the service last. And then it's also got a little bit lower toe. So this is a structured toe. So it's got a leather toe puff in it. That has a toe cap, as you can see, a broke toe cap. So these is unstructured, so you will feel it falling down on your toe. So some people don't like that, but you can
always ask to get it structured.
You can ask to get it structured as well. Again, you have a lot of options when you're going with Flame Panda. That said, I think some people get overwhelmed by having to pick all of the things. You can also tell Peng, like, hey, I saw this boot on your Instagram. I'd like it in a different leather, but other than that, I kind of like that boot. And then he'll make decisions if you don't want to specify certain things. So if you don't want to have to choose, the color of the upper stitching, or, he'll make any of those kind of choices for you.
Will he get any leather for you?
I mean, I do think you probably could get him to get other leathers that he doesn't have, but he also has a lot of good leathers. So I don't think you would run into an issue. Maybe, unless there's like some obscure leather manufacturer that he can't get in touch with. But I think he would at least tell you, if I don't have that, but I have these alternatives.
What are these boots? First of all, what are the leathers that you got on these boots?
Yeah, so mine ended up all being Shinki horsehide. So we've got a chocolate brown Shinki horsehide, we've got a black teak-hor horsehide, and then we've got a natural veg tan. And they're all from Shinki Hikaku, which is a tannery in Japan.
Why do you hate horses so much? Why do you like horses?
I love horses.
Why do you love horses? Is it all horse butt? Why horse leather is what people might be wondering.
Yeah, it is. It's all horse butt. I think when you start getting into more leather goods, there's this notion that horse butt responds very differently than other leathers. So I'd had a number of boots that were cow, and so it was really, for me, when I got this pair, trying to see like what is it about horse that makes it so different. And the things that people talk about with horse is how it rolls. It tends to be like a stiffer leather, and so it feels a little bit different on foot. And then you get these beautiful rolls instead of creases that you sometimes get with cow.
Now, we mentioned a lot of control over the customization. We mentioned the very high tier leathers, and the horse leathers. But how are they made? Like, why would I get these? Why would I think about waiting for them and paying for them over some Red Wings?
Right. So people talk about different construction styles for boots, and the main things we talk about are stitch down or Goodyear welted. It's a stitch down construction, but the person's actually doing it by hand. So you can see here how the top leather is kind of flared out to the side. That's what makes it a stitch down construction.
Because that is worth emphasizing for those who don't know, yeah, your average resolable boot is going to be made with a Goodyear welt. That's like the industry standard, and it replaced like hand welting in the 1860s. Stitch down construction, it's a bit harder to do. Some folks will argue that it is more durable and waterproof. You're probably splitting hairs for the average person, but nonetheless, stitch down is what you'll find on extra tough boots, oftentimes the Pacific Northwest. You will sometimes get brands that are hand welted, which is very, very laborious, takes way, way longer to do than the Goodyear welt machine, which replaced hand welting. Nonetheless, it's not very hard to find hand welted boots these days from India or Indonesia. Hand sewn stitch down construction, that's like, even in the world of handmade boots, that's pretty rare. Quick clarification here. These boots are not quite stitch down construction or hand welted. Peng at Flame Panda sort of came up with his own boot construction for these. And I've been writing to Peng to try and get some details on that, but all I've really got from the experts out there, like Jake at All in Vintage Style, is that it's sort of his own construction that's like a fusion of stitch down and hand welting. Like it's stitch down, but it has a welt. And that's as much detail as I could get. But this is even more rare, actually, than hand sewn stitch down, and definitely more rare than hand welting. And especially with this like level of stitch density. I'll put on screen now some Viberg boots. They are sort of like the kings of the double row stitch down. Some say they invented it. And that's done by machine, and that doesn't mean it's not skillful. The point being, this kind of stitch density, while not as high as like maybe iron boots in Guangzhou, is still for hand sewn stitch down. It's very impressive. So one of the reasons you'd be interested in a boot like this isn't just the fact that the way they're made is rare, but also even in the world of hand sewing boots, which is an extremely rarefied air already, that's really impressive. What else is unusual about these boots? Why are they better than my Red Wings?
Right. So then the other thing is just the attention to detail in every part of the boot. So when you look at the stitch density in the uppers, the uniformity of the stitches, I mean, it's just nearly impossible to find flaws in the stitching of the boots. I think the tan ones really show it the best because they have this high contrast. So they have this white stitch on the natural veg tan. And I mean, I don't notice any flaws in these. So, I mean, you can look at, like here, you can see how it's a triple row of stitching and they're perfectly aligned along a curve even. So, I mean, it's just a
piece of art.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just a testament to like the level of skill that a human's able to achieve.
Correct.
How much do they cost?
Yeah, so several years ago when I first got them, this pair was around 700. This pair is taller, so this is a 6-inch. This is an 8-inch, so obviously it takes more leather. So this was a little bit over $1,000. And then these I got on the used market, so I think I paid $400 for those.
God damn, wow.
Yeah.
What is it like communicating with him English-wise? That's another important one for the ordering process.
Yeah, so communicating with him isn't difficult. His English is fine, at least communicating via email, but he's slow. So it's interesting because there would be like short periods where, you know, I'm getting continual responses from him and then radio silence for 2 months at a time. So I think that's one thing to prepare for. And it might come at the beginning of your ordering process. So people generally contact him through Instagram. Flame Panda 11 is his IG. He also, on his Instagram, he has an email address listed, so you can also email him. I don't think he's particularly fast at one versus the other, so I don't think it might take a while no matter how you reach out to him. He will eventually get back to you.
And then you get to kick off the 2-year waiting list time.
So I'm not sure, but I think it's not until you've figured out the design of your boots, because I think he wants to make sure that you're actually committed to something. And it's at that point that he'll give you a price, and then you'll go into the waiting period.
Okay.
And I think part of the thing too that leads to the wait times is because Peng is so particular about who is making the boots. So from what I gather with interviews with him is that it's him and a few family members who run the shop. And so they don't have a lot of people producing these boots. So like they had a flood, what was that, like 2 or 3 years ago? And then the shop was down and they were helping other people in the village that they're from. And so they just weren't making any boots for a while. And so that is one of the things about his boots. Like when I got this pair, he quoted me a wait time of like 10 or 11 months. I think it was more like 12 to 14 months. And I've heard now that the wait times are closer to 2 years. I think the other thing about it that makes people a little bit hesitant is he doesn't measure you. So the good thing is that you don't have to go to China like you would for someone like a White Cloud. You'd have to go to Japan to get measured in order to get a pair of their boots. But unfortunately, you don't know if the boots fit until they ship them to you. And then you're stuck with them if they don't fit, selling them off to someone else.
Now, when you made the order, did you measure your foot though?
Yeah.
You have tape around your instep and the ball, the whole thing?
Correct. And he'll tell you what he needs. He can also go based on, like, if you have, 6 other brands that you're happy with the size, then he knows the size of those different brands. And so you can tell him, I'm a 10D in Viberg last, like a 2030 last, and he can get a general idea of the size of your foot. I didn't have any issues with that, but again, your mileage may vary.
And yeah, because another thing is when they ask you to send in measurements, I'm just a guy, I'm not a shoemaker, I might get it wrong. I got measured in Brooklyn by Francis Wapplinger, he's a shoemaker there, and I pretty quickly learned I didn't know anything about it. It's not just like standing on the measuring tape, it's different when you're sitting down, it's different when you're standing up, it's different based on what time of day it is. It's different the angle that your ankle's at and everything. Are you sure you're measuring it the right way? It's a lot to ask a regular person to make foot measurements. But I'm glad it worked out for you. What is your shoe size in Flame Panda? Like, does he use UK sizing or European or what?
So he doesn't put any sizing in any of them. He's told me these are a size 10. The guy I got these from said that they're a 10.5. So I was worried about having undersized these a little bit, and I think I probably did. So my big toe comes pretty far forward, and then you can see where it creases here is a little bit off. And so that's why I got a used pair that's a half size up.
What's your Brannock size though, by the way?
So I think I'm actually an 11.
You're an 11 Brannock, and these were...
These are a 10.5.
You were told they were 10.5.
Yeah.
Okay, so whatever sizes that Peng uses, I think they are US boot sizes.
Correct.
So I guess I just want to touch on how do they feel to wear? How do they feel different to other high-end boots? And how does the feeling and the comfort and the fit change over time?
Yeah, so I think everyone should expect, the first month at least. If you're using them a lot, probably the first month to month and a half, it might even be painful. I would say that these were painful that first. I mean, part of it was that I was so committed to wearing them so frequently. These ones I broke in a little bit more slowly. So, I would never wear a new pair of Flame Pandas to work when you're going to be on your feet for 8 hours.
Like, this is a pro tip. If you got a new pair of boots, leave the house with a pair of sneakers so you can get changed if you have to.
Yeah.
Because after an hour or two, there's a good chance. Even for the first week or 2 or 3 or 4, I'll put in a couple hours and then it hurts too much and I got to get changed.
Yeah.
Then eventually it's worth it.
And I've only had the service boots from him, but one of the things about the service boots is that they have this bulbous heel and it really locks your heel in and makes them incredibly comfortable. They're also incredibly stiff. He uses a really thick leather here for the heel stiffener. So it really helps lock your heel in really nicely and makes them very comfortable to wear. That said, it's also heavy, right? As I said, it's a thick leather. And I think the biggest complaint about Flame Pandas is probably that they're heavy, hard-wearing boots. So the midsole that he uses is a very thick veg tan leather. It is hard to break in. When I got these boots when they were brand new, because this acted like a 2x4, and I'm taking the New York City subway, and so I'm going up and down the steps, and you couldn't flex it at all. I mean, you can see even now when I'm flexing that there's not a lot of flex in this boot. So it gives you a lot of support, but they're uncomfortable at first.
You wore these for almost a year straight. Now pretty easy to walk around
Oh,
in?
yeah.
Okay.
And then I guess the other thing is that people are surprised how just heavy they are. Again, I think I am the type that really likes heavy and hard wearing. So that doesn't bother me, but some people, you should know what wearing a heavy boot is like before committing to a purchase like this.
All right, that's everything I can think of. What else? Anything else you want to say about Flame Panda? If someone said to you, "Give me your elevator pitch for Flame Panda," why are these good boots?
Yeah, so to me, they're just one of the best built boots that still manages to be comfortable, that I can still wear. I mean, I wear these every day, and I think the value for the quality is really there. I think these are great value. It's just a long-term commitment in order to get them. I think that's the biggest downside. I think
It's a life lesson in a boot. Yeah, you get the great payoffs, but you would need patience and discomfort. That's
correct.
I don't know if this counts as the metaphysical nature of the boots, but the story of Peng is an interesting one. He's very kind of mysterious and reclusive, but I put a link to an interview that he did with Jake at Almost Vintage Style, our friend, in the description below, and he goes through all this stuff. Apparently, you learn a lot. He's from this small town in China. It's not super far from Shaolin Temple, where that's famous for all the kung fu. And sounds like a very traditional space he's in. That's like the cradle of a lot of ancient Chinese wisdom. This is like his words. His grandfather was a cobbler, but that was a very shameful job at that time, and it was very looked down upon. So his grandfather refuses to talk about the fact that he was a cobbler, and it was also very hard for him to eventually reach his success like this because just the boots were simply too expensive to make for him to make any money. And so that's another nice thing about these boots, is that it really took him a lot of struggle and work and doubt and all this other kind of stuff to get to this level. And then fortunately, the internet and social media hit in the right way with the right connections that he was able to get the success he's had now. So that's always nice relative to getting it from a big brand. Like this is a really, really intimate experience, and you can see it as repaying a man's belief in the art of shoemaking. Yeah. All right. Well, look, thanks for coming in to Queens, Roger, and showing me your collection. I've wanted to get my hands on Flame Panda for a long time, and I'm also glad that these kind of fit me, so keep an eye on them or I will walk off with them. Roger doesn't have anything to subscribe to. Oh, you got an Instagram. Roger's on Instagram. His link's in the description below. Otherwise, he's a pathologist. So if you want to meet him, get horribly sick. And subscribe here if you just went up here for other videos on the really high-end rare stuff that's casual and durable, but also some more accessible stuff as well. And we'll catch you for the next video.